Hi guys. Hi there. Hi there. Okay, so I see everyone have joined. So uh, hopefully you can see what I'm sharing. Sorry, I see. It seems like there is a problem. Okay, so uh, welcome back. Sorry for the noise and the stuff. I just wanted to let you know that we will be writing some quiz test, but it's not for marks. It's just for practice. You can write either tomorrow or whatever day you want. And today I just want to continue with chapter 4. And then if you have question, doubt, concern, you will ask after the session. It seemed like the big blue is being problematic, so I decided to move it here and try to explain stuff for you. So this will be recorded, and you can always use the same link to see what I've been talking about. The challenge here is maybe you can write your comment on the comment side, and then I will read it and see what you are talking about. For example, the good news here is I can click that Lulumelo, just say hey, hi. So basically I can see what you are saying, and Ramis says show Ezekiel. I will be able to follow that, right? So far so good. Welcome back. Sorry for the confusion. Last week we discussed a few things on monetary economics and why you macroeconomics and why you supposed to study this thing and how important it is. Now today I will discuss chapter 4 a little bit and then hear your story, and then chapter 5 you can start reading as well. So So far, I will share this notes. Some people say my notes are good, so I will share them. I just thought it was a good version of using it to explain. By the way, I have record of all the lectures I taught last year. I can share them as well. The link for you to watch if you want. They are on YouTube, right on the as unlisted, so you won't be able to see if you are not listed. Anyway, so I've put examples in my notes, and I'm gonna start with chapter 4. So chapter 4. By the end of this chapter, you should be able to formally formulate the financial market equilibrium, understand what is money and the function of money, what determines money demand, money supply under the assumption that money supply is under the control of central bank, understand what determines interest rate and nominal interest rate, show how they can be how we can use them to calculate the money multiplier. So, of course, these are just the directive of what you're supposed to use, and then I understand what merely these things are in trying to formulate macroeconomics. So basically, in chapter 1 and in chapter 2 and chapter 3, we looked at a good market. We saw that it's a short run. We have demand is determined by what? Demand is determined by goods market on goods market. So there is no prices, which mean prices. We assume in the short run prices are fixed, which mean aggregate demand is merely determined by aggregate expenditure, which means whatever have been consumed is what has been whatever have been spent is what has been consumed, right? Or what has been expended. Then now we want to incorporate the financial market. So the financial market, is in simple terms, it forms a function of actually trying to do what? Distribute or facilitate the liquidity in the market. So one of the objectives of the financial market is to facilitate transactions. So instead of using barter economy, we have a financial market where it allows what? So money have certain function which financial market is what facilitates. Now money, the money then have few function which you need to know what they are and how do they work. Okay, so basically, that is a main importance. So what determines the level of aggregate output? So we know that the South African Reserve Bank operates monetary policy in South Africa. So what do we mean by operating monetary policy? It means in the economic, we have two sides of the economic, especially in macro. There is a monetary policy, which is facilitated by the central bank, and there is fiscal policy, which is facilitated by the national treasury. So when you hear that guy called Tito Mboweni, who is always making jokes about making curry online, actually, his job is to facilitate monetary fiscal policy, which means he's doing tax management and government spending management. While on the other guy, that guy called Seho Kanyaho is a guy who actually managed the financial market, the financial sector, where they have a committee where they decide the amount of inflation which the country is going, central bank is going to manage, and in that light, maybe allows a certain amount of money to be printed or to be put in the economy. Now, how do they put money in the economy? We will discuss it as we go forward. So notice that when you talk about interest rate, you shouldn't be talking about the government. You should be talking about the central bank as what? Because central bank is an independent entity which make financial decision, right? So that's the main thing you need to know about the central bank. So Central Bank South Africa make decision about the financial sector, i.e. the interest rate, the repo rate, the overnight lending rate, all those things are decided by the central bank. So the central bank announces whether the interest rate will increase. When they try to increase the interest rate, maybe if there is too much money in the economy, what it means is that the money is going to lose what? If there is too much money supply in the economy, which there will be too much money chasing too fewer goods, and that is a form of inflation we don't like. So what the central bank then do is to increase the interest rate to pull the money out, right? So that's one thing they can do. If there is too little, if the economy is struggling a lot, and how do they do that? They actually, if they want to increase money supply in the economy, they could do it by selling what? By buying bond. When they buy bond, they keep bond, they take bond in and increase money supply. If they want to do the opposite, they should sell bond, i.e. collect all the money in. Okay, now, so it also regulates all financial markets. So of course, the central bank acts as a bank of last resort. It means every deposit which is deposited in any financial institution, a percentage of it has to go back to the central bank, and it act because the central bank acts as a bank, the bank of last resort, which means it facilitates and manage risk behavior of other banks. So if you know this bank's called VBS, it means the central bank just didn't do a good job in managing it. That's why it went bust. But majority of the time, the central bank will act as the insurer of other banks. If the other banks come under pressure, maybe in suspicious that they won't be able to meet their commitment, the central bank then comes through and try to do what? And try to first to make sure that they print more money, they bail them out. Now, people get very upset when the central bank bail out these irresponsible banks, but in true sense is that the cost of banks collapsing is bigger than if we let them collapse. So that's why they do that. Okay, then of course, so the model we developed in chapter 3 did not include interest rate. As you can remember, we never had that. That was a strong simplification, so we relax it here. To relax the assumption of chapter 3, we must first look at what determines interest rate and the role of central bank in this determination. Second, we must look at how interest rate affect economic activity, more of this in chapter 5. To understand what determines interest rate, we must look at financial markets. So financial markets, they're like the biggest actually traded asset in the world is money. It's like there are many centers of it, right? And money run the world. That's what they say. By now, you would have heard the different type of financial assets such as short-term bond, long-term bond, government bond, and such. Now, semantic. So money, income, and wealth. So from above assumption, we can think of determinant of interest rate, right? You will see that one way to solve this problem is to have interest rate determine the condition that demand for money is equal to the supply of money. So the interest rate is the opportunity cost of you holding money. If you hold cash money, you are foregoing the interest rate which you would have earned if you put your money in the bank. So a second equivalent analysis shows that if the central bank directly announces a target interest rate, it must then act in financial market to change the supply of money and achieve that interest rate. Income is what you earn from working plus what you receive in interest and dividend. So income is a flow, that is, it's expressed per unit of time, monthly, yearly, and that's what income is. Saving is that part of the after-tax income that is not expended, that you didn't spend. Saving is sometimes used as synonymous for wealth. We won't use it here. So when we talk about financial wealth, simply wealth is the value of all your financial assets less all your financial liabilities, and wealth is a stock. So look the difference between money, income, and wealth. Income is a flow, wealth is a stock. Right. Okay, so financial assets that can be used directly to buy goods are called money. So money include currency and checkable deposits, deposit against which you can write checkable deposit against which you can write. So it's called a check. So money also is a stock. It's just like what? It's just like wealth. Now I want you to tell me what. So invest. So okay. Now as always, I recommend to you to read interesting book on the subject here. One book I love actually is John Kay is one of the very interesting writer. You should read his book. It's called Other People Money. It's not a big book. It has 400 pages, which means you should be able to read in 2 days if you are serious. Anyway, so what are the role of money? Anyone, what's the role of money? Any taker? Prabashin. Let's hear from Prabashin. What do you think money is? I see some first year rock up in our class today, so which is kind of good. If you want to learn, it's all well and good. So what's the role of money? Then Erasmus, what tell me the function of money? To make it easy to trade, that is correct. What else? Medium of exchange, that is true. What else? The money is a medium of exchange, yes. Carry out transaction, that could be a very, yes, Ramiz says carry out transaction, medium of exchange. That's a fantastic definition, which means money facilitate what? Exchange, right? Another one, medium of, so it's a medium of exchange, store of value, unit of account. So those are the definition of what money does, right? So remember, those are the definition. You need to remember how they work, right? So that is a very important definition of a function of money. So money serves as a unit of account, medium of exchange, store of value, to mention the view of its function. So money is used for transaction, but pays zero interest. So if you have cash money, you can use it for transaction, but it pays zero interest. There are two types of money: currency, which is coin and bills issued by the central bank, and checkable deposit, the bank deposit on which you write checks. So checkable deposit pays small interest. We ignore this here. Then we have bond, which cannot be used for transaction, but pays what? So, but pays a positive interest rate. So there is a negative relationship between bonds and what? And the interest rate and the price of bond. So if interest rate is going up, the price of bond is falling. If interest rate is going low, the price of bond is going up. So remember that definition, remember that difference, right? Bond which cannot be used for transaction pays positive interest. So interest rate is the opportunity cost of holding money. So if you have cash money in your wallet, if you are actually foregoing the interest rate you could be earning if your money was in the bank somewhere. So holding holding all your money in bond involves some cost as well. So having to convert it every time you need to buy things, then that might actually be a cost. So that's why some people will actually have to have what? To have cash money. You need some money. You need to be liquid, right? If you have bonds and your child is sick, you can't go to hospital and tell the guy, can I give you a bond for you to treat my child? They will be like, no. So you kind of need, so liquidity is a very important aspect of money. So I know you know, but just to remind you, money is trust and useful in solving an intricate problem called coincidence of want. So you know that money is what? It's trust. So actually the why things like credit card work is a very good idea. So actually, yeah, if you really, last year I read a book as well on how Visa card came about. The guy who started a Visa card, he wrote a wonderful book, and you should read a book about the history of Visa. You should see how money works. So trust is a very important thing in facilitating trade, and then money money actually remove the coincidence of want. Can you imagine if you had pumpkin and you wanted sugar, and the guy who sells sugar doesn't want pumpkin? Now, coincidence of want is a scenario where if you wanted pumpkin and you had sugar, then you need to find a guy with sugar who want pumpkin. Now, imagine that transactional cost. So instead, by having goods denominated in some form of currency, in some form of money, then it means we do not now have to search for a guy with the opposite good of which we can exchange. So that's why money is a very good tool in removing coincidence of want. So okay, 1 minute. So it's probably a good idea to hold both bonds and money. So of course, a rational person will do that. This depends mainly on two variables. So your level. So why will you want to hold money? So you will add why do we demand money? One, we demand money for transaction purposes when we buy food, when we buy goods and services. And then two, we demand money for what? So one is for transaction purposes, two is for speculative purposes. I could hold some money, maybe something will become cheaper. You know, like South Africa, we love buying stuff. Not necessarily South Africa, let me not generalize, right? Yes, but people do like buying stuff. So of course they need to have some money to speculate, right? And then we have some money for precautionary purposes. So this depends mainly on two, your level of transaction, reduce friction, having to run errand to change from bonds to money. If the interest rate is higher, you will probably want to hold interest-bearing asset, i.e. bond. So interest rate on bond then is important. Most of you probably don't hold bonds. Chat to your parent what the type of bond do they hold. Now let me check. How many people hold bonds in my class? Anyone? Luluma, are you pay? Do you have a bond? Like some, yeah, or Ramis or Denen. Anyone hold bonds? No? It's like, Ezekiel, do you mean a bond of a house or a bond of what? Right. Anyone? No one hold a bond. Then, do you hold a bond? Anyone? I do. So Muano hold a bond, right? So a bond of a house or a bond of as an investment? No, lol. Right. Okay. Right. So some people hold bonds. Remember, you don't only have to hold bonds as a car bond or whatever, only mortgage bond. Hey, Prabashin, you need to start buying bonds from government, like government issue bonds, right? Or central bank issue bonds. Those ones, they are interest bearing, but I do have some interest rate bearing account. That is a good one, right? So, ish, I'm not teaching, some people, they are studying economics and they don't have any investment. It's just a cry. Accident. Anyway, so hold different assets. Hold a bond, hold stocks, and hold all the different assets. Why? Not because you want to make money, but you learn at least, right? So money market fund receive funds from people and firm and use these funds to buy bond, typically government bond. Money market funds pay you interest closer to the interest on the bonds they hold, the difference coming from administrative cost of running the fund and their profit margins. Look up 220 idea in financial management. So 220 is that if you give your money to a hedge fund, the hedge fund will charge you 2%. It's called a management fees, and then they charge you 20% of the profit. So if you give them 100 rand and they manage to double it, first they will charge you 2% of that 100. Before even they invest your money. If you give them 100 rand, they charge you 2% of it. So the only money they are going to invest now for you is 98 rand. Then when they double that 98 rand, 196, they keep 20% of it as well as a part of it. So that's what is called a 220 idea in financial management. So you can learn that, right? Other possible reasons for demand for money are speculative purposes and precautionary purposes. Now, if you have been following financial market nowadays, there is a thing called what non-fungible tokens, right? The guy who founded Twitter just wrote his first tweet for 2.9 million US dollars. Now, that is just speculation. What does a tweet you send for the first time? What is an intrinsic value of it? So the guy called Jack Dorsey, who is the guy who founded Twitter, sold that tweet for 2.9 million dollars. But so he gave somebody an ownership right of the tweet. Now, what do you gain from that tweet? It's called speculation, right? Similarly, there's a guy who just sell, the JPEG. When you take a picture, you can save the picture. And he just took a lot of pictures and mumbled them together, and they call it a non-fungible token. And he sold it for $69.5 million last week. So currently in the financial market, there's a lot of speculation, right? So there are now a lot of people who are fighting on the things which are not. So remember, an asset must have some intrinsic value. If it doesn't have an intrinsic value, then we say there you are just speculating. It's like saying this thing the price is going to go up. Why? I just think people are going to be very rational, right? And then the price will go up. So we will need money for speculation. We can then formally write what determine money in the very simple form that money demand is given by nominal income and some liquidity for money function, right? So this MD is money demand and RY is your nominal income, right? And then this LI is just the liquidity for money. So of course, your money demand is dependent on the amount of income you have. If you are a bowler, you do demand a lot of money. And if the interests are very high, you demand less money, right? So basically that's what it means. So the liquidity for money then, LI capture the fact that interest rate has a negative effect on money demand. An increase in the interest rate decrease the money demand because you will want to keep the money in the bank to earn the interest rate. So the demand for money increases in proportion to nominal income. So the higher the what? So if you increase your nominal income, you demand more money for transaction purposes. Now I like using signs, so it means if your interest rate goes up, you demand less money because you actually want your money to be in the bank to earn interest. Remember, the opportunity cost of holding money is interest rate. So when the interest rate goes up, you demand what? You demand less money. And then what happened? But when income goes up, when you have more money, you demand more. When you have more income, you demand more money for transaction purposes. So the relationship is depicted like this, and it is in your book, and you should be able to follow that. If you increase your money, if your income increases, your money demand will shift to the right. From the graph above, we see that a given level of nominal income, a lower interest rate increases the demand for money for a given interest rate, and increase in nominal income increases demand for money. So if you lower this, MD goes up, the opposite is that. So the curve is downward sloping, the lower the interest rate, the higher the amount of money. Please remember the sign and the direction of the relationship. Right. We could rewrite the equation this way, which now is totally different, or we could divide it by price and then get what? So you're saying your liquidity for money is your money demand over the income, which means if your income goes up, what happened to your interest rate? It should go down, right? And the other way around. If you increase your money demand, there's a positive relationship. That's just understand the relationship between the variable. So this liquidity for money function is a decreasing function of the interest rate. That's the equation predicted that when interest rate is higher, the ratio of money to nominal income should be low. When the interest rate is low, the ratio of money to nominal income should be higher. So that's one you should know that. We sometimes refer to inverse relationship of money to nominal income. That is to the ratio of nominal as what? As velocity of money. So this thing is what we call velocity of money. The velocity stems from the fact that when the ratio of nominal income to money is higher, the number of transactions for a given quantity of money is higher. It must be the case that money is changing hand faster. In other words, the velocity of money is higher. So there's a guy called Don Bush book, cover this better, not prescribed, yet relevant read. So I hope that you read that if you have time. There are two suppliers of money, of course. There is a central bank, which supply checkable deposit, and the central bank's supplier of what? Currency. Here we assume that all money is currency. We will introduce the checkable deposit and look at the role of bank a bit later. Okay, so that's the main thing. So we go back to our equation, which says that at equilibrium, our money supply is equal to money demand. We write it this way. The above equation tells us that the interest rate must be such that people are willing to hold an amount of money equal to the existing money supply. So the equilibrium, the equilibrium relationship is what we call the LM, which is liquidity for money. The LM is nothing else but it's liquidity for money. The IS is nothing else but it's investment and saving. So when you hear IS, we are talking about a relationship between investment and saving. LM, we are talking about liquidity of money. So the interest rate must be such that supply of money is equal to the demand of money. We know that at equilibrium. The effect of an increase in the money supply on the interest rate, so an increase in the money supply from, say, M1 to M2, lead to a shift of the supply curve to the right, and interest rate decrease from I to I. So if you increase money supply, if the central bank put more money in the economy, it means there is more money in the economy, the opportunity cost of it is lower, so the interest rate is lower. So more money supply, interest rate is lower. Now, my question to you is it good to have more money supplied in the economy or not? Yes, is it good if we increase money supply in the economy? Is it a bond as a financial instrument? Yes, that is, I see that Nen was asking whether am I asking a bond as a financial instrument? Yes, I am asking as a bond as a financial instrument. My question now is, if we increase money supply, in the economy, what happened to the South African rand? Assume that the Central Bank of South Africa just print more rand and put in the economy. Or like during COVID, for example, the US printed 30% of all the dollars which was already in the world. So they printed more, 30% of More money is good up to a point. Now, okay, how when you say up to a point, and then how do I know? When people says money is good up to a point, which point? Thank you for the comment, but up to what point, and why? Why is it up to a point? Can you please elaborate? Anyone can take on and elaborate. Muano, Makoka. Yeah, Makoka. Sound like my previous lecturer, right? Okay, now, yes, why is money good to a point, as Danan says? Any checker? So people don't know why money is good. So of course, more money. If there is more money, when something is very, very available, assume that you have a partner. If you are always there, you are not scarce. The value they won't treat you nicely. When I go home, always like, my child, you are home. Scarcity create value. So if you are there, you depreciate. At home, you go home for the first few days, they teach you nicely and they give you food. The third day, they start like, okay, wash dishes, do this, run chores, right? Why? It means depreciation kick in. So the plentiness of you there make you depreciate, right? So even money, if you have more money in the economy, you start the money lose value, right? We say it depreciates. So more money in the economy is not necessarily good. Too much money actually make the currency depreciate. More money can kickstart the economy, but when it starts pushing inflation up and then the exchange rate down, it becomes a problem. Correct, Denan. Thank you very much for the very good answer you gave here. So yes, I endorse this answer. Right. Okay. Right now, let me continue. So we know that so an increase in the supply of money lead to a decrease in the interest rate. A decrease in the interest rate increase the demand for money, so that it's equal to the larger money supply. So an increase in nominal money lead to an increase in the interest rate. Lastly, an increase in the supply of money lead to a decrease in interest rate. So remember, now we have a thing called OMO, which is an open market operation. How does a central bank increase money in the economy or decrease money in the economy? So central bank can actually change the amount of money in the economy by buying or selling bond in the bond market. If it want to increase the amount of money in the economy, it buys bond and pays for them by printing money. If it want to decrease the amount of money in the economy, it sell bond and remove from circulation the money to see from the exchange of bond. Such an operation is called open market operation. Ever had the idea safe as houses? Watch the essence of money documentary. So I kind of this is a very good documentary. Spend time watching it. You will learn a lot about the financial market and stuff. So now I have told you the book. There's a book called Other People Money by John Kay. It was a very good read. Even so, the idea that the ascent of money is a very good documentary by an economic historian called Neil Ferguson from Stanford University. You should watch it. It explains like how money work, how money came about to be money. It has, I think, four episodes. It's not a lot. So on the weekend, binge on it, understand what it means, right? Remember, economics is not just about you cramming the equation. It's you actually understanding the nitty-gritty of the market, not me just shouting out on top of my lungs what this is. So for simplicity, assume that SA Treasury bills or T-bills promise to pay a given number of rand 1 year from now. What will be the interest rate? If we assume that the bond to be 1 year bond with a price, that's a price of a bond. If one buy the bond today and hold it for a year, the rate of return on holding the bond for a year is given by that, right? Which in simple term we could write this. Now, notice that as the interest rate goes up, the price of the bond fall, and as the interest rate goes down, the price of the bond go up. This is 100 rand, I just choose it. It's like any number. You could choose a number and just check. So the higher the price of a bond, the lower the interest rate. So note that expansionary open market operation is an operation in which the central bank increases the supply of money by buying bond. The demand for bond goes up, increasing the price of what? Increasing the price of bond. Conversely, contractionary open market operation refers to a situation where South African Reserve Bank decrease money supply by selling bonds, which lead to a decrease in the price and an increase in what? In the interest rate. Okay, so then we're going to move to a second part of our subject. I'm going to stop here for a minute and hear if you have a question before I explain the next part. Any question? Okay, does that mean lower interest rate? So the question from does that mean that lower interest rate, like now in SA, isn't good? Now you need to understand that the South African economic now is undergoing what? The global economic is undergoing what? Is facing a pandemic. So in that event, central bank actually have an incentive to lower interest rate for people to borrow to stimulate consumption. So it's a good idea to have a lower interest rate if you are facing a pandemic. If there is no pandemic, lower interest rate, or if the economic is at equilibrium at full employment, lower interest rate might not necessarily be a good idea. So keep that in mind. Thank you for the question. Anyone has any other question? No question? Okay, if there's no question, let me continue and let's see. So determinant of the interest rate, part 2. Now remember the initial part we were looking just on how the money, what is money, what's money demand, what's the money demand equation, what are the factors that determine money demand. So I say the transactional purposes, precautionary purposes, and speculative purposes. Those are the reason why we have money demand. And I talk about the relationship between money demand and the bond prices, and they talk about how does a central bank actually increase money in the economy or decrease money, so they can do open market operation. When they do open market operation, they are doing what they are. So they can do open market operation where they sell bond. So if they are selling bond, it means they are trying to absorb. So they sell bond, put bond out, take money in. So that's a contractionary. If they buy bonds, they are buying bond of public and the increase money supply. So that's a expansionary, right? So depending on the nature of the economy. Now we're going to look on the second side where the determinant of interest rate part 2. The banks are one type of financial intermediaries. They receive funds from depositors, keep some of this fund as reserves, and use the rest to make loan and purchase bond. Bank keep as reserves some of the fund they have received. So bank hold reserve for 3 reasons. 1, the demand for money, we know that, we already know this equation. Then the demand for money, which is your what? So we have demand for currency, that is 1. And then let D be demand for checkable deposit, right? Then we say that the demand for currency is equal to what? It's a currency ratio times your money demand. Give the first component of the demand for central bank money. The demand for currency by public then must be what? So the demand for currency by the public, which is your checkable deposit, will be what? It will be money demand minus what? So we're looking for demand for checkable deposit. It must then be your demand for money minus demand for currency, right? So how much you are holding as deposit, it must be the whole amount of money, which if you open bracket here is MD minus CMD, which means MD is your original money demanded less what has been what? Less your currency demand, which give you the demand for checkable deposit. So how to figure out what is your checkable deposit is take the money demand you are given less your demand for currency, and then you should get that, right? Now notice that you already know what MD is from here, so you can always plug it there, but you are not doing that for now. The larger the amount of checkable deposit, the larger is the amount of reserve that bank must hold to allow customers to receive cash or to clear checkable checks between banks. So let theta be the reserve ratio then. Let R denote the rand amount of reserve of banks. So, and then let D denote the dollar amount of checkable deposit amount. So reserve then is what is R, which is our reserve, is equal to a proportion, which is, so this theta is nothing else but is reserve of a deposit. So sometime I ask you what is theta, and just know that if I gave you a reserve and I give you deposit, the ratio of it give you what? Give you the reserve ratio. Now, you already know what is D. How did you get the D? D is here, which is 1 minus CMD, which means then when you come and say your reserve then must be theta times D, where D is coming from 4. So basically it becomes this. But then again, you know what is MD? MD is merely that. So remember the substitution, remember the protocol, the way you go about substituting them is quite important, and being able to solve your equation. So the demand of the interest rate then, the determination of the interest rate, the demand for central bank money is equal to the sum of the demand for currency and demand for reserve. The equation, the equilibrium condition is such that the supply of central bank money must equal to what? So what we're going to do is H is equal to CUD plus R. Now we know what is CUD. How do we know that? It's CMD. And then we know what is RD, which is this. So you substitute them and you should get that H is equal to what? So why do we call it H? We say that the demand for central bank money is equal to the sum of demand for reserve. Now we call this H because this H is high powered money, right? So high powered money is merely CUD, which by the way, I have managed to get it at equation 4, and then plus reserve. So your currency, so your demand for checkable deposit plus your reserve give you the what? So demand for currency plus your reserves, demand for reserves give you your high powered money. When you plug them in and simplify, notice that you get CMD plus that, and that is your nominal money demand. So this is what I call a high powered money. Now, so high powered money is like what we call monetary base. So another word you might find in your tutorial or in your test is that we talk about high powered money referring to money supply of a central bank. The supply of central bank money, left-hand side, is equal to the demand of what? We call it high powered money because it's money merely given by the central bank, and is high is boosted by the multiplier. So if you take 1 over this term in the square bracket is what we call a money multiplier, which have your currency ratio and the reserve ratio 1 minus the currency ratio. So if I told you to calculate the money multiplier, just know is 1 over this term. The higher the interest rate implies the lower demand for central bank money for 2 reasons. As the demand for currency goes down, the demand for deposit also goes down, leading to a decrease in the demand for reserve by bank. The supply of money is fixed and is represented by a vertical line, which is that, as before, an increase in the bank money lead to an increase in the interest rate. Okay, 2 alternative ways of looking at equilibrium. So there are 2 alternative ways, so you could actually just, this is not very important. What is important is you being able to make money demand the subject in this format. So the other is through, so the one is through the condition that the supply and demand reserve be equal, which means H minus CUD is equal to that. Supply for reserve is equal to demand for reserve. Right. The other is through the condition that the supply and demand for money be equal, which is the supply and demand money. So that one. So again, I say this is what I call the money multiplier. So if I give you values, you should be able to solve for all the equation from 1 to 4 and substitute them and getting the relationship such as this. Now, supply of money is equal to demand for money, where this is the money multiplier. So notice that if this thing goes up, what happened to your money multiplier? So always notice what happened if you increase C or when you increase theta. How does your money multiplier behave? If the money multiplier is increasing, it means the amount of money you put in the economy, it gets highly boosted to have higher impact. To reflect the fact that the overall money supply in the end depend on the central bank money. Central bank money is often called high-powered money or monetary base. Right. Now, I am not going to do the example because it's here and I have done it already and I have typed it. But I want you to attempt it and make sure that you can understand. So I want to see if you have a question. So there's an example here. Let me see if you have a question. If there's no question, then we can continue a little bit and finish. It's just a little part which is left, so bear with me. Any question? Denen Erasmus or Prebashini Pillai or Luluma Goloda or Moano. Any question among these people? Oh, Ramiz. So the good question from Dennis is, are financial market always at equilibrium or are they always moving towards equilibrium? So sometimes they are in equilibrium. We can give you a scenario where we start from equilibrium and deviate because of a shock, or we could start away from equilibrium and ask you to explain the mechanism at which it will take us back towards equilibrium. Thank you for the question. So the question from Denen. Denen is participating today. Some people must have gone home and actually read. They're like, Ezekiel, you can't just be asking me stuff which I don't know. So very good, Denen, for participating and asking a question. Anyone else? So yes, financial market might not necessarily always be in equilibrium, but when we shock the economy, they do come back to equilibrium. Or we might start from equilibrium and then go toward away from equilibrium, or start from off equilibrium and work towards equilibrium. Please try to attempt the question I write, try to attempt the tutorials as well. Any other question? Right, so please try to substitute and try to follow what I did. If you don't understand, so the first one, compute the equilibrium interest rate. So money demand is given by what? By MD is equal to this. In equilibrium, the money demand equal money supply, and you are given that money supply is 10. So you equate them and you solve for interest rate and you get your interest rate to be what? To be 27%. Now, suppose that the central bank increase money supply to 15, which means we expect the interest rate to fall when you increase money supply. So if M is equal to that, you equate to that and solve and see that the interest rate has decreased. So another example, suppose that a person wealth is 50,000 rand and that her yearly income is 60. Also, suppose that her money demand function is given by this. What is her demand for money and demand for bond when the interest rate is 5? And then remember that the sum of money and bond demand is total wealth. So describe the effect of the interest rate on the money demand and the bond demand. Is it consistent with the theory in chapter 4? Why? Then the next part says, suppose that the interest rate is 10%. In percentage term, what happened to the demand for money if the yearly income reduced by 50? Right, so I have done that as well. Money demand plus that should give you your total wealth, which means if you take this, your money demand, which you know the equation, plus this should give you that. So you need to find what? Your demand for bond. So demand for money plus demand for bond should give you your total wealth. So your total wealth for 50. So this is just a question you need to know how it has been solved. Right? So I solved them and then every part of the question has been solved. So again, I'm going to stop here and see if you have a question. And then try to do the question. So I can't do the question and then do it again. Unless you get stuck, then I can do for you. Right. So let's see me here. It is bad for the market to remain at equilibrium for too long? Is it bad for the equilibrium to remain in the market for too long? Probably. When you say that, is it bad? So if it is a good equilibrium, then that's a very good idea. If it's a bad equilibrium, then it's actually a bad idea because, for example, Japan have been going through this prolonged stagnation for a very long time. Now, is it good for Japan to continue being in a prolonged stagnation? No. Yes, it is actually bad for Japan to continue being in a prolonged stagnation. So probably they should try to stimulate the economy. So equilibrium is where you prefer to be. But later when you grow up, you know that actually that's not a true idea, a good idea, or it's a bad idea. Or actually, the economy is never actually at equilibrium. It's always swinging from a disequilibrium to another disequilibrium. And financial actors then will have to try to manage the economy to stay in equilibrium. But in true sense, the economy is never really truly in equilibrium because it's open, it's susceptible to shocks. There's always irrational exuberance. There are people who are being so excited about something like Bitcoin. Now they are busy buying Bitcoin, and then they just they cause imbalance in the market. And there are other people who are just so excited about buying stocks. So the stocks are very volatile as well, right? So markets are never truly at equilibrium. It's actually a job. It's actually swinging from one disequilibrium to another disequilibrium. And the job of a central bank is to try to manage those volatilities, not to become really severe and make the economy collapse. Now, remember, if they become really volatile, it means that there's a chance that we might lose faith completely in the financial sector, and that will affect the purposes which money perform. For example, if we don't trust money, if you are in Venezuela now, people are using Bitcoin to buy stuff because no one actually trusts Venezuela currency. Zimbabwe used to have really hyperinflation, which means that as well, it means the market have actually collapsed. So there's no equilibrium in the financial market in Zimbabwe. So that is my comment for that. Any other question on this? No question. Now, I encourage you to do that and read chapter 5. Next week, we will do chapter 5 and see what's happening, and then do some tutorials, right? So if you do not have a question, okay, I'm going to stay here for the next maybe few minutes and hear if you have a question or doubt or concern or hate speech, anything you want, you should tell me so I can hear it. Do the rule of so the next question, which is a very good, yeah. Then you, congratulations, today you are on the case, right? Do the rules of monetary money, do the rule of money apply to cryptocurrency? Now, what does money? So what does money do what does money do as a function what does money? What's the function of money? Money perform what? Perform medium of exchange, store value, and unit of account, and what? And yeah, so those are main things. So does cryptocurrency perform a medium of exchange role? Probably yes, but is it global? Does it have the extent? Now you must understand, cryptocurrency, there is only the supply of cryptocurrency is 21,000. That's the amount of cryptocurrency available in the world. Now imagine if, so it's a ledger, it's not really physical. It's a ledger where we're using energy to actually confirm those who hold what. Now that is a very good idea if we all assume that my grandmother in probably whichever village can buy things using cryptocurrency. So I think cryptocurrency is very good in a very highly formalized world. It won't work in a world where there is no formality. And that's why actually lower economics, countries like small countries won't even want to have that because first, it will consume electricity. Second, formalization of it is very difficult. So cryptocurrency would have been a good thing if you could what? If you could make, if it doesn't have, so what's a very simple thing? It's a computer language. It's called cryptocurrency have a latency issue. Latency issue is how quick. Like if you look like a Visa card, I think it processes what, over 1,000 transactions per second. Cryptocurrency actually is very, very slow. So go check the latency issue with cryptocurrency. I'm not here to explain cryptocurrency for you. And then the regulation which manages cryptocurrency, actually no, because a lot of central bank are trying to fight cryptocurrency. Why? Because they will lose legitimacy of their role if they allow for it. So that's all I can say for now for cryptocurrency. Let me see. Right. Now, Nicola, Nicola says, but the cryptocurrency is infinitely divisible. That is correct. But you need to understand that the divisibility must be a function of what? Everybody being able to understand. Now, the currency which is managed by the central bank is understood by everybody. If you tell my mom that she owns a micro coin, she will just be very upset with you and she won't sell you vegetable or anything, right? And by the way, I can only imagine you trying to sell a Zulu lady vegetables and tell her that you are going to send us some microbytes in her phone, which is valuable. First, she is not going to trust you. Second, she's going to slap you. So probably that's a bad idea. But I agree with that, right? So cryptocurrency work in a world which is very informal. Any other question? I see people are very excited about cryptocurrency. I'm not sure why, but yeah. Mm-hmm. First, make sure you have a solid understanding of macro, of financial marketing economics. Understand how money. Actually, there is a whole sector. Actually, there is a whole specialty of monetary policy, monetary economics, and you can read a lot of theories, and you can read a lot of thing. So somebody says, what can we expect for tomorrow TAT test? Tomorrow TAT test is not for marks. It's just to make sure that you actually understand how WASI work and how does a time limit work with you. So tomorrow TAT test is merely from the chapters. So read all the slides which are on Sakai. Make sure that you have a solid understanding of them. Do your TAT and make sure you can answer them. Are these notes available on the site? No, but I can send these notes to you now after that, because literally all these are the same as the slide uploaded on what? Or uploaded by Fatima. The only reason why I have this, I write my notes on LaTeX, why it allows me to improve them anytime I feel like, and it helped me it helped me to improve them, right? All the time, yearly. How do we complete the written part on the TAT test given the maths we do on paper? Is it possible online? Yes, actually, yes, you can type. There's a LaTeX thing. There is a LaTeX things on there. There is a LaTeX functionality on WASI, so that should be able, you should be able to type a number and you should be able to write a story. Remember, hey, I'm not that bad, Lulu Maman. I can write a text recognition function, which is read your statement and figure that now you are just writing wrong answers. So read and be concise. When we ask you, what are the 3 functions of money? You can't tell me to buy milk and sell vegetables. You will get wrong because I just explained in this lecture, right? Now, a quiz is only on chapter 3. That is correct. Yes, Pranish, any other question? And this guy responded. Right. What else? Any other question, doubt, concern? So if there is no question and there is no doubt and there's no concern, I shall actually go focus on sending you this notes. If you want to practice this question, you do not have to practice my question. I just want to warn you that it might just come and haunt you somewhere along the line. So listen to the slide on Sakai, watch the videos, and then if you have time, you can practice more questions at the end of the book, do the tutorials. Please make sure if you have a question, send me an email, schedule a consultation. I'm quite open. I can organize some time and we can run a chat on what you are struggling with. Right. Just in case you thought that you are talking to a robot, Ezekiel is actually around. And hi everyone. And that's my face. So I'm gonna end now. Okay, so see you next week. Good luck with your quiz and make sure that you try, you do it. And then if you have a question, we can chat. Have a beautiful week, productive week. Keep reading.